Hello friends, today we will understand how to implement Flipped Classroom. Flipped Classroom is meant to reach every student in every class every day. Flipping basically speaks the language of today's students. Today's students are grown up with internet access, YouTube, Facebook, MySpace and host of other digital resources. Most students are carrying in their pocket a very powerful computing device. Instruction via video is not a big deal for these students. Students appreciate the flexibility of Flipped Classroom because the main content is delivered via online videos and students can choose to work ahead. Implementation of Flipped Classroom. A flipped classroom is a classroom where topics are introduced as a part of students' homework through videos or other media, and classroom time is spent in guided practice. It's flipped because what was traditionally done in homework is now done in class, and what was traditionally done in class is now a homework. Flipped classroom is a term commonly defined as a pedagogical model in which traditional lecture and homework elements are reversed. Students engage with interactive content, focusing on key concepts prior to class, allowing face-to-face time for collaborative activities that clarify concepts and contextualize knowledge through application, analysis, and planning and problem solving. Implementation of Flipped Classroom consists of 7 steps. Let us understand this through a framework. There are the 7 steps like step number 1, learning outcomes, implementation strategy, develop pre-class learning activities, develop and link class activities, deliver the flipped class, link to post-class, and evaluate the flipped classroom. Let us understand all these steps in the further slides. Step number 1, learning outcomes and key concepts. Describe what students will be able to do after having learned this topic and list the relevant key foundational concepts. Step number 2 is really important because here you plan your implementation strategy. Where does the topic class fit in my timetable? How will you shift the workload? That is, start the class later or finish earlier. Ensure that you are not putting additional work for the students. How and when will you induct the students? The why, how and when of flipping and the relevance of the topic is important. When does the pre-class need to be released? That is, maybe 1 week before the class time. What is the due date for the students to complete pre-class learning activities? Maybe 24 to 48 hours before the class time is allowed. How will you maximize the use of allocated physical space for the class to facilitate interactive group learning? How will you evaluate the effectiveness of your flipped class? Step number 3, develop the pre-class learning activities and checkpoints. Using Bloom's taxonomy, select key basic facts and concepts and related content for this topic that students will need to remember and understand. Please remember to embed checkpoints for interactivity and feedback loops. Step number 4, develop and link the class activities. Select relevant concepts, related content, and group learning activities like case study, flowcharts, role play, quizzes, posters, which require students to apply and analyze the core concepts covered in the pre-class. Establish clear link between pre-class and class time. Support class activities with planned mini lecture that introduces and summarizes some complex concepts. Step number 5, deliver the class. Deliver your linked flipped classroom and relative activities. Set up physical space to accommodate group-based learning and organize learning resources. Review students' responses to the pre-class at the start of the class. Clarify remaining learning issues. Deliver classroom learning activities and mini lecture as needed. Time on task. Monitor allocated time dedicated to each classroom activity. Summarize the learning segments by reviewing the learning outcomes. Step number 6. Link to the post-class activities and assessment. Make explicit links between the topics and post-class activities and assessment tasks. This could be group-based or individual post-class activity and assessment tasks that build on the concepts of pre-class and class time. Step number 7. Evaluate your flipped class. Monitor level of the student completion of pre-class activities and level of the student participation in class activities. Invite students to give informal feedback. Make relevant changes for the future flipped classes. Shown is the diagram of Bloom's taxonomy. Very important is to embed checkpoints when we are designing the pre-class activities, which are intended for the students to remember the key concepts and understand the key concepts. Also, during the class activities, we could plan mini lecture, which could be 10 to 15 minutes, and it could be teacher driven or content presentation during the class. Based on the inputs given, dear students, please design a flipped classroom session for your subject. Your classroom session should consist of pre-class activity in form of video or any other digital content. The video should be around 4 to 6 minutes with a recall spot or reflection spot. In-class activity should be group activity or individual activity, which will lead to knowledge assimilation. Post-class activity should be related to the pre-class activity. Thank you.